Hi folks, so a couple of weeks ago I made a video about this project that I was doing in the month of July where I was designing 31 Harry Potter covers, and they were black and white in ink and they're in here. So I'm going to show you the completed collection. Before I do though, I should explain this, which is a result of this. Basically, too much drawing has given me a repetitive strain injury in my wrist. It now turns out that my other wrist is starting to have the same kind of issue, I think mostly from working on the computer. So going forward I am wanting to colour all of these, and I will show you what I've done so far on that, but it might not happen as quickly as I had hoped. But I will do another video once I've finished colouring all of them and do a sort of scope of the project as a whole. But without further ado, let's have a look at what I've done so far. So we start off with Hogwarts, A History by Bagshot, and this one I have actually coloured, so I will insert an image of this here. And this was done on Photoshop. Basically I've been playing around with different textures to give it either a cloth bound or a leather bound effect in the background, and then the idea is to work with no more than 3 colours printed on the background. So in this case we've got a sort of greyish white and then the gold foil, so just 2 colours on the red. I've also done a little bit on this one, it's a sort of work in progress, but yeah, Magical Water Plants of the Mediterranean. Got Standard Book of Spells by Miranda Goshawk, Advanced Potion Making. And what I might do actually is, I've got some of my little thumbnails in here as well, which are just a bit on my process. So I have pages like this, which are just lots of little thumbnails, just sort of iterating different ideas. And this is what I was doing with this, is sort of sketching out a few ideas really quickly, and because I was doing one of these a day I had to decide on an idea pretty quickly. So that limitation on the project made it a lot more sort of direct, and you had to just be really decisive and just go with it. But I am very pleased with the results on most of these. So we've got Year with the Yeti, and I've done a series of the Gilderoy Lockhart books within this, and I designed this sort of monogram thing, which you will see in a few others. Defensive Magical Theory, Unfogging the Future, and Sonnets of a Sorcerer. And as I was going through these, I was going through the titles, and I would look at each title and sort of think, what sort of aesthetic would I go for with this? Because they're all based on sort of late Victorian book covers. So I have a Pinterest board which is full of late Victorian book covers, and what I would do is go through and sort of find something which was compositionally similar to what I had in my head, or if I didn't have anything in my head, that was a good point to sort of jump off of. So for instance here I looked at some different typography examples and some different compositions. This one I wanted to look more sort of like an illuminated manuscript or something like that, something a bit older or with older influences, because you've got Sonnets of a Sorcerer, it makes you think of Shakespeare. I mean, surely Shakespeare was a wizard. History of Magic, with this again kind of medieval style cross-hatching type thing. Another Gilderoy Lockhart. And I love the idea of, and somebody pointed out that with the Gilderoy Lockhart ones, it's unlikely that he would publish a book that didn't have his face on the cover, which is true. However, I didn't really have the resources to do a full, or the time to do a full portrait of Gilderoy Lockhart in each of these. So what I did here is have, this is Gilderoy Lockhart, and then a vampire. And I love the idea of Gilderoy Lockhart just kind of wandering around looking for vampires and not realising that there is one right behind him, sort of out to get him. Quidditch Through the Ages, again, sort of looked at some of the more complex compositions in that Pinterest board. Say, prefects who gained power. Lots of P's. Magical Me, yeah, another Gilderoy Lockhart. This is again quite heavily based on a composition that I looked at for. Actually, I'll try and find it and put it up here. But I think it was a book of poetry, and the lettering on here. Again, a lot of inspiration taken from another design, and Ancient Runes Made Easy. I wanted this to really look like a textbook, but also have the capability to be a bit more lavish than your standard textbook. So this will have some gold foiling on it when I finally put it, or when my wrists are up to digitizing these. Armando Dippet. This is one of my favourite ones, the 1000 Magical Herbs and Fungi, and yeah, I just sort of played around with a few different shapes of the leaves so that they're not all the same. Another Lockhart. I really quite like this one, but I think it's going to look a lot better when it's in colour. I really like the composition and the way that the swirly sort of decorations ornaments are on there. But yeah, I think it will look better once the different parts of it are highlighted in colour. And Dark Forces, A Guide to Self-Protection, another one of my favourite ones. I'm really looking forward to colouring this, and again, making different elements of these really pop out with the gold foil or some sort of colourful foil. Advanced Transfiguration, and then Magical Theory. I really like this one as well. I think just the composition is very satisfying, and the way that the text kind of goes into the border, so I had a lot of fun doing that. Numerology and Grammatica. I'm quite pleased with this one, even though it's not that exciting. But again, I think it will look a lot better once it's in colour. And then from the least lavish and intricate to probably one of the most ones, yeah, I had a lot of fun doing all the fine detail, which is probably what killed my wrist. But yeah, there's a lot of detail in particularly these last few. Tales of Beedle the Bard there. I think that will be an interesting one to sort of colour and foil, because it's a lot more intricate. And Flesh-Eating Trees of the World. I think this is my favourite one, because I spent quite a lot of time sort of figuring out the composition and wanted it to sort of look like an Art Nouveau book cover when you look at it at first glance, and then realise after looking at it a bit closer that you've got these shapes and figures and faces in there, which are quite sinister. Then Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them. I played around with quite a lot of different ideas for this, but really loved that image of a phoenix coming out of the fire, and also a salamander, because it sounds a lot like Scamander, so it seemed like Newt's kind of a visual representation of Newt's name, and also that salamanders are sort of associated with fire as well. So I liked the way that they fitted together. Beginner's Guide to Transfiguration. Again, we've got a lot of Art Nouveau sort of influence there, and in the text here. And Advanced Rune Translation. I wasn't quite sure how to actually put runes into this one. So in the end I decided to just go with some different kind of ornaments. Certainly I had an idea of putting a whole lot of different rune shapes in a tree, and by this point my wrist was not happy, so that was kind of out of the question. But Confronting the Faithless is another one of my favourite ones, just because I feel like it's got a dark sense of humour to it. That there's something quite sinister about this figure, but also maybe they do have a face, you're not quite sure. I've enjoyed doing that one. And then the final one here, Curses and Counter Curses, by Professor Vindictus Viridian. I left this one till last because there were so many words in the subtitle, and I just thought, I don't know if I'm going to have the skill set to do this at the very beginning. So I thought I'd leave it till last, and hopefully I would have built up enough skills to be able to do it by the end. And I'm pretty pleased with how this one turned out, actually. And it's another one that I'm looking forward to colouring and sort of having some gold foil, especially in this bit here. This bit of hair there. Yeah, and on this bit here, sort of as a stamp. So that's the whole collection, and yeah, there are some in there that I like a lot more than others. Certainly, I feel like I improved a lot over the course of a month, and that is really one of the big benefits of doing a project like this, which has a limited time frame where you're doing something every day. And we've got October coming up, so Inktober is a thing. I have a plan for what I'm going to do for Inktober, so it will be something similar to this in many ways, or at least similar in that I will be working and producing something to post on Instagram every day. But yeah, hopefully I'll have all the colours and things done on these before then, and I need to figure out what I'm going to do with this collection as a whole, because I'd like to put them into a booklet or something like that, or maybe make some postcards from them. But if you have any ideas or suggestions of what I could do with this project now that I'm closer to finishing it, that would be much appreciated. And I would also love to know what your favourite one of these designs is. Yeah, let me know down in the comments, because I just find it fascinating to see which ones people are more drawn to, and they may be the ones that I decide to do something a bit special with when I'm colouring them, or I might make them into something more. I don't know. Lots of ideas, but yeah. So that's the 31 days of Harry Potter covers, and that's my cautionary tale about maybe working a little bit too hard, maybe just, I think it's doing too much of this whilst travelling, because I've been about the UK. I'm in London staying with family at the moment, but I've been all over the place, which means I've been drawing on trains and on buses and sitting on people's couches, all sorts of strange places that I wouldn't usually draw. So that has put a lot of strain on my wrists. But fingers crossed, or fingers crossed if I can cross my fingers, that this will, yeah, sort itself out before too long and I can get back to things. Anyway, as always, thank you very much for watching. Let me know in the comments your favourite designs, and I will see you in the next one. Bye!